Okay, Henry Bramwell is the owner of Visionary Graphics, a marketing communications company located in Patchogue. Visionary has been in business for over 20 years and provides website design, copywriting, and search engine marketing services to a diverse group of clientele. In addition to internet marketing, Visionary also designs print collateral materials and provides media placement and research services. I'm done.
Well, thank you very much. All right, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so my name is Henry, thank you, and I started my business back in the late 1980s when there was no such thing as the internet. We started out as a graphic design studio, designing brochures and annual reports and things like that. And then in the mid-90s, you know, our clients started asking us about this thing called the internet. What is this thing? We want to be a part of it. So we started learning, we were self-taught, how to create websites for our clients. And those first generation of websites were really nothing more than taking your brochure or your pamphlet and putting it up on the web. And everyone was really excited about that. They thought it was so cool that there it was. And they waited, and the phone never rang. So, you know, then we went through this next phase where we understand that, you know, the internet is an opportunity to have an ongoing dialogue with your clients or potential clients. And it's not just about what you have to say. It's about what people need, and hopefully you can fulfill that. So let's just talk real quick about internet users. Who are these people you're trying to reach? Well, it's pretty split. You have a pretty split between men and women. It's about 80%, 81 men, 79% women are on the internet. By age, you can see it clearly. Okay, the younger ones are all on the internet, and as you get older, the demographics get older. At 65, roughly 48% of the people are on the internet, and that's a high number, and it's the fastest growing segment of the population. And really, the reason why is because everyone else is already there, so there's no further room for growth. So the 65 and older group are more and more now are turning to the internet, and they're turning to the internet for health information, you know, even shopping. So, you know, I think a lot of people thought, well, you know, older generation are not going on the web. And it's not true. They are going on now, and so very important demographic. Then income, and you can see once again how you go from the lower income brackets in internet use to the higher income brackets. And you can see that, you know, 75,000 and up is just about 98% of those people who are on the internet. And 30,000 below, it's about 65%. Education, once again. No high school diploma, it's like 45%. And college is 91%, and college with further education is almost 97%. So you kind of see the trends here in terms of who's using the internet, and it's clear that the well-educated, the higher paid people are the ones that are on the internet. All right, so how do we use the web? If you're going to build your own website, or you have your own website, it's kind of important to understand how people use it. When we started building websites, we didn't really understand it, but through a lot of trial and error, we learned. And really, what it boils down to is that first slide that I showed. I think you all saw that. And that's the one thing I stress to everyone. If there's one thing I leave, just think of your website as that billboard going by 60 miles an hour. And that will help you to kind of put things in context. That people are not going to your website to read all this great information you have to say about yourself. People don't care. There's some good news and there's some bad news. Bad news is there's no loyalty on the web. The good news is there's no loyalty on the web. So if they go to your competitor's website and they don't see what they're looking for, or they get frustrated with the experience of being on the web, they're going to click right off. They're going to click off that site and go somewhere else, and hopefully it's going to be you. Or the shoe could be on the other foot. And they could go to your site and get frustrated because I can't find a phone number. I can't find their hours. I can't find, you know, what it is they do. So they'll click off. So you can turn around and use that to your advantage. You know, the internet is relatively new, so the playing field can be level. So if you're competing just even beyond your area. So it's very important that that the websites have the kind of information and don't frustrate a user when they're going through it. It's all about that user experience. You have to sit on the other side of the table. Okay? Don't think about what you have to say. Think about what they want to hear. Okay? That's what they're looking for. Okay? So, when people go to the web, and by the way, a lot of this information that on this next little section is from a book called Don't Make Me Think. It's a great book about web usability. He's a great speaker, and it's a great book to read. It's just a real common sense approach to websites. So, first and foremost, people don't read pages on the internet. They scan them. They look real quick. If something is of interest to them and it catches them, maybe they'll read it. So it's very important that you set up your website so that you're not overwhelming the person with a bunch of information at first. What you can do is you just put some basic information. We call it chunking. Just put a chunk of information. And if someone is interested in reading more or learning more about that topic or that service or whatever you always have that click more link. It's always better to give them a little bit first, and then if they want more, they can drill down to other pages and read more. That's very common in like health and nutrition type websites and things like that, because people are always looking for as much information, and they'll read and read and read about things. But there are other websites that say, look, I just want some basic information. People, can you do this for me? I just want to know, can you do it? Help me. And they'll scan it. They'll look at it real quick. They're going to look at the page. Is there something there for me? No. Goodbye. I'm going somewhere else. We'll go back to Google. Or they say, there it is. That's what I'm looking for. Click on it. And they'll go for more information. So it's very important to kind of understand that you don't want to overwhelm people. That's not to say you can't have a wealth of information on your website, but you just need to arrange it in such a fashion that you're kind of introducing the concept or whatever that is, and then providing a link to drill down for more information. The web has unlimited real estate, and it's real cheap, so you can do that. But don't put it all in your front yard. You have to have a little bit of curb appeal. You can hide it in the back behind the shed. So, people don't always make the optimal choices. What they do is they look for the first reasonable option. That satisfies. That's a word he uses. It means you're looking for the first reasonable option and you go there. They're just looking for something in the general vein of what they're looking for. Do you do this? Do you do that? Click, go. So that's how a lot of people use the web. People just kind of muddle through a website. They're kind of looking, they may, it's not the end of the world if they click on a link and they go to the wrong page and they have to go back. It's all right. If it happens a lot, it could be a problem. But people kind of muddle through and they try to figure it out themselves. So that's why it's very important, as we get a little bit further down the road here, we talk about conventions, the way things should be set up so that it's familiar to people. So the more you can kind of keep with conventions in how you design your site, how you set up your site, the more comfortable people are going to feel on your site. And it'll be predictable, they'll be able to understand where they can go, it'll be a comfortable experience to them. And I just want to say something about home pages really quick. I have a lot of clients who will say to me, I've got to get this on my home page. I have to say this about this. I have to grab them here. I got to catch their attention there. I got to do, stop. If they're on your home page, you've got them. You've got their attention. Okay, they're there. You now have a captive audience. So it's not about dazzling them at that point. Okay, they're there. Okay, whether it's through search engine or advertising or whatever, they're there. They're at your front door. Don't stand there at the door and start talking to them. Invite them in. Okay, so it's very important that people understand that they're on your homepage. You got it. Now it's a matter of keeping. And in some cases, with certain types of websites and things like that, they may find the information they're looking for right on the homepage. Do you do this? What are your hours? Are you certified? Are you licensed and insured? These types of things. And it's a validator for them. They go to your website, maybe they saw a truck with your name on it, or they even look maybe in the yellow pages, which, by the way, how many people advertise in the yellow pages? Wow. And can I just ask, have you cut your yellow pages spending down in the last few years?
Yes.
Do you foresee ever eliminating it?
Possibly.
What type of business do you have?
I have a limousine company. I think I'm going to stay in my little market in my hometown, in the yellow book. That may be it.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. You know, everyone would get the yellow books, and wasn't that the jerk Steve Martin? You ever see that movie? The yellow book is here, the yellow pages are here. He was all excited the phone book came. And now, unfortunately, Google is just about everyone's phone book. So it's not to say there are certain types of businesses that should still be in the yellow pages, definitely. Just for an example, like an injury attorney. I would do that, because if we go back to that slide about income and things like that, it's, you know, slip and fall injuries, things like that, workman's compensation injuries, things like that, they may be going more to the yellow pages for that. So it's very important. There's no blanket rule here that applies to everything. You have to keep an open mind. Like even in my business, when I'm meeting with a client, they say, look, I just want marketing help. Not even necessarily a website, but I need marketing help. Well, a website may be part of it, but print collateral, print campaign, direct mail, radio, television, it's a mix. It's always going to be a mix. Now, for some people, that slice of the internet pie may be 80% of their marketing, but for others it may be 40. So it's very, very important for you to kind of find the right mix that works for your type of business. You know, it's different for everyone, so you want to make sure that you don't forget those other things, and they should all reinforce your message. And just from a marketing point of view, the most important thing you can do, consistency. Consistency. We design logos for a living. We do very beautiful pictures. We do these nice little things, but consistency is more important. That you are consistent with what you do, everything you do. You use your logo in a certain way. You have certain colors you use, taglines, things you say, how you say it. You have to stay with it. Stay with it. It's far more important than trying to always reinvent the wheel and come up with something better. Stay with it. I'm very hesitant when someone comes to me and says, I've had my logo for 15 years, I want to redo it. I don't know if I want to do that. You know, you have 15 years of goodwill and advertising and branding associated with that logo. I don't know why you'd want to necessarily throw that out the window right now. So it's very important that what you're doing translates over to the web. Now, for some people, the web is going to be the driver. That's going to be the first thing. And then if you're going to do print collateral or something else, you may just kind of work off of what you've done on the web. But it's very, very important that you be consistent. Absolutely important. So people, you know, in terms of the internet, you know, there's no penalty if you guess wrong. You go and you click on a link. So there's real no pressure there. If they click on the wrong link, you go back. But the key is, if they click on an inside page, they can very easily find their way back to where they're going or going to another page. So that navigation is very important, that you have consistent navigation, and we'll talk about navigation in a bit. You have consistent navigation on every page so that if someone does go down a path, they can easily find their way back. So that's very important. Okay, now we're going to get into conventions. Okay, so I'm using this word conventions, and what do I mean by conventions? Conventions are things we learn and we become familiar with. And for example, in the newspaper industry, we learn to read newspapers, but we learn to see these conventions first. And you know, like we have the headline. So we know that if there's this large block of type above an article, that's the headline. You know, you weren't taught that, you just kind of figured that out yourself. And if all of a sudden they decided we're going to put the headline down at the bottom of the page and we're going to do it small, people aren't going to recognize it. And people are going to get disoriented, they're going to get frustrated. So there's this thing called conventions where there's certain predictable attributes and characteristics that go on. I'm just using a newspaper as an example right now. You know, you have a photo. If there's a little type under the photo, that's probably the caption. Okay, so people become familiar with this. If they started changing all this around, it would frustrate. I gotta remember a couple of years ago, Newsday redesigned their paper. Does everyone remember that? And when they first did it, I mean, I was like, oh my God, I hate this. You know, oh my God, this isn't gonna work. They're gonna have to go back. It's because they kind of changed their conventions a little bit, the way they did things, the typeface they used, the way they laid out the articles. So that can frustrate people. So when you translate these conventions over to the web, it's very important that you kind of keep things predictable, where they should be, and what people would expect. It's really meeting those expectations. All right, so let's talk about website conventions. Okay. So website conventions are very useful. But they will only become conventions if they work. If you're trying to do something on the web, like put the logo down at the bottom, you know, people don't see it, well, it's not going to work. So if it doesn't work and people aren't accustomed to it, then it really can't be a convention. Now, I'm a designer, and we always go down this path where we have a client. We want to put our spin on it. We want to make something beautiful and do everything. So designers are very reluctant to use conventions because we want to try to come up with something original. We want to kind of be unique. We want to try to be whatever. But the reality is we have to balance these conventions. There are certain things that are expected with a website, and we have to work with that balancing. And we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But it's very important if you're going to hire a design firm to work on your site, or you're going to do this yourself, really take the time to look at other websites. Look at your competitors. In our business, we call that peer review. But really all you're doing is just looking at other people's stuff. And if it looks nice, you copy it. So that's we call peer review. So it's very important that when you're going to do this, look at your competitors and see what they're doing. And not only the way they design their site, but see how they're using the internet to promote their business. Because you may find things, say, wow, I never thought of that. I'll put all my forms up on the website. Like a doctor's office. To me, it's like every time I go into the doctor's office, I get this clipboard with all these forms. And I'm sitting there, it's like, I had a 4 o'clock appointment. I thought I was going to be with the doctor at 4 o'clock. Now I'm filling out all this stuff. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. I would have filled this stuff out the night before. So when I came, I would expect to be seen. So put the forms up on the website. Let me download them. You know, just put them all up there. Let me fill them out, and I'll bring them in with me. So it's things like that. And it also, that helps the staff at the doctor's office, too. Because then it's just handed right to them. They have it. It's no big deal. So, you know, the web can help to make your customers' lives easier, but it also can help make your life easier. So it's very important when you're planning your website, you ask yourself things like, you know, what am I constantly being asked about my business? What are people constantly asking me? That every day the phone rings and they say, oh, do you carry so-and-so widgets? Every day these people ask me, well, put it up on your website. You know, see? It's all up there. You know, frequently asked questions, whatever it could be. So the website could be very useful in reducing the demand on your staff, but also kind of providing this information. So when not to use a convention, when you really know you have a better idea, then you can break the rules of convention. And that's rare. And for people that are going to be designing their own website, I wouldn't recommend it at all. Okay, I would use conventions. Stick with it. And that's what are the conventions? We're going to give you a couple examples of conventions right now. So, okay. So a convention on a website would be the navigation running across the top. Okay, everyone's kind of used to seeing, you know, the navigation running across the top of the page, or maybe down the left side of the page. That's kind of standard convention. I mean, once in a while you'll see a website where the navigation is running down the right side of the page, but it just kind of looks funny. You know, I'm kind of used to seeing it the other way. The logos are probably 80% of the time, the logos are in the upper left-hand corner of a web page, because that's where the eye first goes when they go to a page. It's going to be drawn right to the upper left-hand corner. Look at your logo. And that's not to say you couldn't put your logo somewhere else, but it's just to say, look, if you want to kind of play it safe and play by the rules here, and who made up these rules? I guess the people surfing the web made up the rules. They become comfortable finding information in a certain place. So the logo in the upper left-hand corner is very important. Hyperlinks, those words that you click on. You know, they have an underline under them in many cases, or you'll mouse over them, and they'll change color, or an underline will appear, or it'll become bold. Well, through conventions, you say, well, that's a link. That's going to take me somewhere. Like you know, no one taught you that. You just figured it out when using the web. So also you look at the navigation and you say, all right, resources. Well, you kind of know under resources you might find frequently asked questions. You might find links of interest. Like we've all become familiar with how it works. So when you're doing your own site, just remember the rules. But yes, go ahead.
Is a hyperlink the same as a link?
Yeah, a hyperlink, yes. Now, I mean, a hyperlink could go to a page within your site, or it could go to another website, or you could actually use it to like download a form or something. But yes, a hyperlink, a link, it's the same. It's the same thing. And you want to make those links, apparent to people. So take the guesswork out of it. You don't want to frustrate people when they come to your website. Take the guesswork out of it. Make it obvious. And this is the struggle that I have, is balancing the practical issues and the conventions versus trying to give someone something that looks aesthetically pleasing, and they're kind of like a branding to it and things like that. That's a balance that we always struggle with. It's an ongoing thing all the time. But you always have to ask yourself those questions. Does this make sense? Is it going to make sense to my clients? Anyone else questions? Yeah.
I have one. You said about the navigation bar, but does those hyperlinks, do they have to be underlined as well at the navigation bar?
No. No, because when you go to that navigation bar, sometimes there'll be, when you mouse over it, a drop down will come down, right? When you mouse over it, something will happen, or it will change color, or the word will get bolder. Something should probably happen to let you know it's a link, but we've all become accustomed to knowing that if you see these little boxes with words in them going across, those are links, or they're a drop down. And the same going down the left side. We've just become accustomed to that. It's kind of like the unspoken word, those are links. But when you're embedding them like in copy, like on a page, like where you say, they're talking about something and it says learn more, that you have to kind of distinguish. You have to kind of say, hey, this is a link. Tell me, click on it. Yes?
Well, when they have like stuff on that website like that and they have a category, don't they have a little arrow you can get a subcategory from the category?
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to do it, and it's all about usability. For example, if you have your navigation going down the left side of the page, if you click on something, it may expand open.
Right.
And one of the things we spend a lot of time on, and we'll talk about why you should hire a professional and why you shouldn't, but what I spend most of my time on with a client is the sitemap, planning, what pages you're going to have on your website, and we actually put it out, make a flow chart of it, of the pages, and what are sub-pages within those things, and how could that potentially relate to another page in another area of the site. So we create this blueprint. I kind of think of myself as the architect. We create a blueprint, and we go back and forth on that a lot. We spend a lot of time with our clients going back and forth with this sitemap, because I want them to get a total sense of how this thing's going to work, how is the information going to be presented, and we want to do it in the fewest clicks possible. So there may be things that are in 2 sections of the site, for example. You may have something that carries over to a completely different section, and duplication is fine. Duplication is good. There's no problem at all. You may have things in different areas. So that navigation, depending, there's many different ways you can do it, but we'll talk about some practical issues with website browsers. Is everyone familiar with what a browser is? A browser is your Internet Explorer. How many people use Internet Explorer? No, that's good. That's the worst one out there. Okay, for a web designer, that's the kiss of death. Okay, it's unpredictable. It doesn't follow anything in terms of HTML when we create a website. And then each version of Internet Explorer behaves differently. So if you have an Internet Explorer 8 and Internet Explorer 7, they'll behave in a different way. So we'll build a very clean website with code, and it works perfectly. You're shaking your head because you probably do it or you know about it?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so we're so prideful. We have this great thing, it works wonderful, and you open it up in Chrome or Firefox, and it's working great. Then all of a sudden, you open up an Internet Explorer, and everything's a mishmash. So now we have to start writing hack code to make it work. So it's kind of like rewiring the hack. You just paid an electrician to wire your whole house, but the Internet Explorer switch doesn't work, so we got to run a wire over the ceiling and thing in there, special thing into the box. It's ridiculous. And their market share, and I'm going to show you the numbers, has plummeted because it's just not a good product. But they had that market share because it's Microsoft. Microsoft had the market share. They say, hey, we don't care. So they don't care about the web developers and the web designers. But how many use like Firefox? What about Chrome? Believe it or not, Chrome, that surprised me. We'll show those numbers. Chrome was #1. That surprised me. I figured Firefox would probably be, but Firefox and Chrome both work very predictably. If you build something and then you go to look at it on the web, it's like, okay, it's all good. But there's nothing worse. I did a website for Mather Hospital, and they were using like Internet Explorer 4. And you know, like the whole hospital was using this stuff. This is going back a couple of years ago. But it was really antiquated, and we built this very complex website for them that did a lot of great things. But it wouldn't work on their computers in the hospital. So we were writing hacks and doing all this stuff and to make it work so that they could see it on their computer in the hospital. Meanwhile, only 4% of the marketplace were using Internet Explorer 4. So as web designers and web developers, these are some of these practical considerations we have to do. For example, drop-down menus do not behave well in Internet Explorer. They don't work. Transparency, if you have some sort of transparent thing that goes over like type or something, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and they don't care.
Does it matter whether you have like Apple or PCs?
No, because the browser is independent of the operating system. And that's what we call now, and I'm not really even going to go into this too much, but cloud computing. Like everyone now, cloud computing. Cloud computing is when you're actually going through the internet to even access maybe an application or something like that, where you're actually using an application over the internet. And it doesn't matter what your operating system, whether you're a Mac or a PC. It doesn't matter because you're actually working through the internet.
Just an addendum to that, Safari does render things differently, so it does matter when you're viewing them, how it lays out depending on what browser you prepared it for. So you kind of have to check it.
We test every one of them. In other words, we beta test every website we do. Like we have these old computers running. I think we go like Explorer 6 now, I think is where we stop. But we'll test it on every one of them just to make sure. But Internet Explorer is by far the worst.
What happens if you start a website on Internet Explorer, but then you make revisions through Mozilla?
Well, you're not making the revisions through it unless it's, you know, you're actually using a content management thing. But you're building, the way we build websites is that you're not constructing them within a browser. You're constructing them, you know, on your computer locally, and then you're uploading it, you know, to a server, and then it's the browser is just the appliance you view it. Okay, so it doesn't really matter, but you know, my recommendation is just go away from Internet Explorer. It's a horrible browser, so stay away from it.
You're talking about just making it in Internet Explorer, not users using it in Internet Explorer.
Well, you don't make the website in Internet Explorer.
No, but I mean, okay, so if I make it in Internet, if I make the site and a user is using Internet Explorer, that's when the trouble occurs?
Yes, exactly. So that's why you have to test these websites in all the different browsers. You have to test them to make sure that they work right and function in all the different browsers. So that's one of the things like that we do. So when I kind of talk about my services, and for those of you who want to do your own website, I'm not here to talk you out of that. I'm just here to tell you what the options are. Like a big part of what we do is the testing to make sure it is compatible. If there has to be a fix or a workaround, I guess is what we call it, to make it work right. We spend a great deal of our time on the back end of things. The actual construction of a website goes pretty quick. We do it all from code. Yeah.
What language at the back end do you use?
Well, I mean, we're using HTML coding, and now there's something called HTML5, which is coming out, which is going to, you know, really revolutionize things. And it's my understanding that Internet Explorer wasn't working well with HTML5 either, that's going to become the industry standard, and that's where things are going.